The film begins with John Henry Clayton returning to his hometown of Fowler, Wyoming, after many years. He arrives at his childhood home and has a tense reunion with his strict father, Reverend William Clayton, who informs him that his mother has passed away. The Reverend expresses disappointment in John for abandoning the family and becoming a gunslinger. Noticing John is unarmed, he questions him, and John replies that he's left that life behind. John later visits his mother's grave. Sometime later, John and his father head into town for supplies. The townspeople barely recognize him, but the store owner, Mr. Parsons, remembers John as the man who left for war. John's father sends him to the saloon to pick up some cider. There, when John mentions he's the Reverend's son, a thug named Frank Tillman mocks him for not carrying a gun. Frank boasts about killing 4 men, but John doesn't recognize his name. A man named Dave Turner steps in, drives the thugs off, and John remembers him. Dave compliments John for taking down Big Jim Westfield years ago, but John insists he's not looking for trouble and walks away. Reverend Clayton explains that a wealthy businessman, James McCurdy, is hiring men like Frank and even gunslingers like Dave to harass local farmers into selling their land for railroad expansion. He suspects John's return may be connected, but John denies it. Later, John is seen chopping down trees to clear a field on their land, something his mother had always wanted them to do, but was never fulfilled. That night, the Reverend invites John to attend church the next day, hoping he'll find his way back to God and truly leave violence behind. John brushes it off. The next day, John continues clearing the field while his father heads to church. After the service, the town's men gather to discuss hiring gunmen since their sheriff had abandoned them overnight. Reverend William opposes the idea, insisting that violence isn't the solution. He tells them he has already sent a message to the U.S. Marshal for help, but the townsfolk argue that no one is coming. Being poor, the law never cared about them. While working, John is visited by his old love, Mary Alice, who heard of his return. She's been married for 8 years to another man, Tom Watson, and now has a son. She confesses she waited for John, but after years without word from him, she moved on. Meanwhile, in town, Frank and his gang plan to threaten Daniel Peterson into selling his land. However, Peterson appears in town, and Frank viciously beats him in front of everyone. John witnesses the attack and steps in, calmly asking Frank to stop so he can take Peterson home. When Frank challenges him, asking what he'll do about it, John simply replies that he'll do nothing. Frank lets him take Peterson, and the townspeople assist. That evening at dinner, John appears troubled by the day's events. He opens up about his time in the war, questioning God's existence after seeing countless good, God-fearing men die. His father, angered, accuses John of choosing that path and going to war to kill. The next day, Dave, Frank, and their gang arrive at Peterson's farm. Peterson stands his ground with a shotgun, but Dave calmly tries to reason with him, urging him to think about his wife and children if he were to die. Peterson seems to lower his guard until Clyde, one of Frank's men, impulsively shoots him dead. Clyde mocks Dave, questioning whether he ever truly kills anyone or just talks them to death. In response, Dave guns Clyde down and challenges the others, but no one dares to speak. Following Peterson's funeral, the townsmen consider offering John $200 to defend them, but Reverend William firmly refuses on John's behalf, insisting that John has left that life behind. Meanwhile, Dave meets with McCurdy to discuss Clyde's actions. McCurdy, however, isn't concerned. He's pleased, noting that Peterson's widow and 2 other families have now agreed to sell their land. McCurdy praises Frank's aggressive methods, but says he still needs Dave around in case John decides to take up arms. Back on the farm, John continues clearing the field and gets into a heated argument with his father. John accuses him of being disappointed that it was his brother William who died instead of him. Reverend Clayton denies this, telling John that's not how he feels. Elsewhere, Frank and his gang attempt to intimidate Mr. Chadwick at his home. However, the townsmen ambush them, killing one of Frank's men. The survivors, including a wounded Frank, flee. Realizing someone must have leaked their plans, Frank suspects a traitor among them and immediately executes one of his men on the spot. John visits Mary Alice at her home, and they reflect on their past. Before he left for the war, she had given him a red ribbon from her hair, asking him to return it if he still had feelings for her. John tells her she was right to marry Tom and quietly walks away. Unbeknownst to them, Tom witnesses the moment. That night, before bed, Tom questions Mary Alice about her feelings for John. She reassures him that he is her husband, and she has no regrets. Later, it's revealed that John still keeps the red ribbon hidden away. Elsewhere, McCurdy berates Frank for botching the situation with the townsfolk, warning that his reckless actions might inspire others to fight back. The next day, Frank murders Chadwick. Soon after, Chadwick's widow sells the land to McCurdy, but bitterly tells him that when someone finally brings him down, she'll be there to spit on his grave. Meanwhile, John and his father are in town buying supplies when Frank and his gang show up and cut in line. Frank spills his drink on the floor and on his own boot, then humiliates John by forcing him to clean it. John complies, but as he tries to leave, the gang ambushes him and brutally beats him outside. They restrain his father, who pleads with the crowd for help. But no one steps in. Mary Alice tries to intervene, but Tom holds her back. She insists that John is her friend and rushes to help once the beating ends. She and the Reverend help carry John home. At the saloon, McCurdy seizes the moment and convinces Tom to sell his land and take his family far away from Fowler and from John. Tom agrees. The following day, Dave visits John at home. He urges him not to retaliate, saying they may not have met before, but he still considers John a friend since they both served in the war. John calmly assures him he has no intention of causing trouble. A few days later, John attends church, moving his father to tears of joy. After the service, Mary Alice warmly welcomes him back, but Tom steps in, shoving John and demanding he admit he doesn't love Mary Alice. John stays silent and simply walks away. Realizing he had misjudged the situation, that John wasn't trying to steal Mary Alice, Tom decides to cancel the sale of his land. He goes to McCurdy and tells him he's changed his mind. McCurdy angrily reminds him that they had a deal and warns him there will be consequences. Later, John prays alone in the church, and his father joins him. John confesses that after the war, he drifted from town to town, eventually landing in a small place called Norton, across Kansas. There, in a saloon, two men provoked a fight. John fought back, killing both, but one of his bullets went astray and struck a young boy through a store window, killing him instantly. The boy was about the same age as John's late brother William. John breaks down, blaming himself for the child's death. Meanwhile, McCurdy and his men visit Mary Alice, informing her that she and her family have only 32 hours left, as Tom had initially agreed to sell the land. Desperate, Mary Alice goes to John for help. However, John urges her to accept McCurdy's offer and leave town to save Tom's life. That night, Reverend William personally visits McCurdy to plead for the Watsons' safety. McCurdy coldly refuses. As the Reverend leaves, Frank and his gang ambush him in an alley and stab him. Fortunately, townsfolk find him and rush him to the doctor. McCurdy later scolds Frank for acting without orders. The next morning, John sits by his father's bedside as he awakens from a coma. Reverend Clayton pleads with his son not to seek revenge, fearing it will get him killed. But John calmly insists, this won't end until someone ends it, and this is the only way he knows how. John retrieves the gun he had hidden away and stops by the store for another weapon. Mr. Parsons lends him a LeMat revolver, a rare firearm with 9 rounds and a built-in 10-gauge shotgun barrel. Armed and resolved, John walks to McCurdy's saloon while the townspeople watch in silence. Inside, he calmly asks for Little Ned, then instantly kills him with the LeMat. Guns drawn, John warns the young men inside that anyone who doesn't want to die should leave now. Those unwilling to fight walk out. With lethal precision, John kills the rest, sparing only Frank, who flees upstairs, only to be shot in the head moments later. As John exits the saloon, he is confronted by Dave. John tells him to walk away, but Dave says he can't. His employment won't allow it. They prepare to draw. John admits that the lammat is heavy and puts him at a disadvantage. He asks Dave to let him step back into the saloon to retrieve his Colt. Dave agrees. Inside, John retrieves his gun. But instead of returning, he heads upstairs to confront McCurdy. McCurdy stands nervously by a window, gun shaking in hand, but he's too slow. John shoots him dead, and McCurdy's body crashes through the window to the street below. With McCurdy dead, Dave is no longer bound by duty and lowers his weapon, allowing John to walk away. Knowing it won't be long before word spreads and bounty hunters or glory seekers come for him, John decides to leave town. His father begs him to stay, but John promises they'll see each other again. He rides off toward the horizon. A year later, when Mary Alice passed away, John didn't attend the funeral, but a faded red ribbon was found tied to her headstone. After his father's death, John never returned again. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.